This week on The Futurists, Shelly Palmer.
Look, everybody wants to talk about AI as if it were invented yesterday. What's important about AI is that while it wasn't invented yesterday, we are now living on the exponential, and the change is coming faster than anyone or anybody or anything can adapt to it.
Hey there, welcome back to The Futurist. I'm Rob Tercek, and I'm joined by my co-host, Brett King. Hi, Brett.
Hey.
How's life in Bangkok?
It was great. I was at a big event today, Money 2020. There's, it's sort of a big fintech event. So, but interesting. A lot of talk
in person.
Yeah, and quite
They're back.
It's a little subdued, but still, there's a really strong core there. Surprisingly, there's quite a bit of crypto action at the moment, because obviously the Bitcoin halving and the pricing and stuff. So there's a bit more action.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of buzz right now. That's true.
But the really big opportunity in Asia, which again we will talk about at some stage, is cross-border digital currency transactions.
In what, the Chinese yuan or some other?
But and other tokenized elements. So even the big banks here and so forth are talking about it. It's a really important conversation because China is fairly well advanced in elements of systemic automation, industrial automation that require support from the CBDC. So I think this is where I'm concerned about the US losing significant traction at the moment on this stuff. So we should talk about that another show.
We should, and on that topic, we have someone with a very useful perspective, particularly on American corporations. Our good friend and returning guest, Shelly Palmer. Hey, Shelly, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Futurists.
It's fun to be here. How you guys doing?
Very good. It's great to have you back again. So Shelly's been a guest on the show, and Shelly and I have known each other for, 20 years or so. Very well-respected voice of the future in New York City and across the country. For the folks who don't know him, Shelly is a professor. He's the professor of advanced media at the Newhouse School of Public Communications. And he's also the CEO of his self-named company, the Palmer Group, where he provides strategic insight and advice to Fortune 500 companies. And, Shelly, that's actually what I'm interested in. I wanted to pick your brain today about advice. Brett and I have had this running conversation for about a year. We haven't done it on the show yet, but it's, Brett is constantly traveling. He gets a great perspective about different parts of the world. And our general observation is that when you travel abroad and come back to the United States, whether you land at JFK or in Atlanta or Chicago, my God, or in Los Angeles, you feel like you're going back in time. You actually don't feel like you're going forward in time. When you land in Shanghai or if you land in Singapore, you're like, whoa, this feels like the future. This is a whole sort of society that's oriented towards the Pacific century. You just don't get that vibe. When you get to New York, the luggage belts are clanking along and one of them's broken and the moving sidewalks don't seem to work in the airports. And it just sort of feels sad. So tell me, Shelly, your perspective, having advised the CEOs of corporations across the country, do you think American companies have a vision of the future? Are they in a position to execute on it? Let's exempt the big tech companies for a minute.
Wow, what an interesting question, Rob. To the level that anyone is qualified to speculate about that. We're at a time when our lived experiences don't match the numbers we've been taught to pay attention to in order to get a barometric reading on all of the things, both technical, fiscal, and emotional, that you just sort of glommed into one question, right? Because it's not, you go through an airport, the infrastructure is old now, unless it's a new airport. Like every sports league has people building new stadiums for something. And if you go to an old stadium, no matter how venerable and iconic it may be, it's old. But then you go to SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles and you're thinking, wow, this is the state of the art. This is amazing. You go to the Sphere in Las Vegas and you're thinking, I've never been in a theater or anything like this. Then you go to other theaters and it's like, if it's not an antique and it's not supposed to be, it feels decrepit and falling apart because the infrastructure is old. Our highways are old. America is not an old country, but our technology is long in the tooth, and our infrastructure is long in the tooth. But it's worse than that, because whatever has gone on post-pandemic, which was so predictable, they printed a ton of money with nothing to
Mm.
back it up, and your dollar's worth 25% less right now. Everybody's 25% poorer. They just are. You didn't need to be a mathlete, a genius, or an economist to understand, if you printing something on the order of 25 to 40% of all of the currency on earth inside of a 24-month period with
Yeah.
nothing to back it up, when that catches up, nothing good is going to happen. History is just teaches us that everywhere, and we're living it right now. So, what feels good about America? What feels bad about America? People who are the workhorses of America, the salt of the earth, the people that drive the economy, are going to the supermarket and have sticker shock at a level they haven't had in years.
Mm.
Wages, real wages, are not increased in any way. Inflation's taken a massive bite. Right? It is so disproportionately unfair to people who work for a living, as opposed to
Yeah.
those who invest, or those who, are in the capital markets, or have learned. Even, look, a lot of people had a lot of money in real estate. Real estate's having looks like a real estate winter post-COVID, especially commercial real estate. So are we having a telethon for people that, are having a down year after 30 years of like unbelievable growth and with a lot of tax favorability, compared to someone who's a wage earner who literally goes every week? They're getting hit from the government, from the state government, from the local government. They're paying sales
Yeah.
tax. They're paying, local school. Like there's
Plus, house insurance is up, and your interest
everything.
rates are up,
Yeah,
and your
yeah.
house is
You
so,
can't
so yeah,
even
it's
get
getting really
insurance on houses in some states, right?
That's right. Yeah. So, like, when you ask a question as fully loaded as the one you asked, the first thing that comes to mind is that any reference I would normally use to fully understand or give you like my best guess, which wouldn't be an informed opinion, it would just be my best guess. I don't even have that ammo for you right now, because
wow.
nothing, with everything I
Your
just said in
your crystal
Midtown.
ball is cloudy.
No, but here's the thing, Rob. If you were in town, if you and Brett were in town tonight, and we wanted to go to a nice restaurant, not the best restaurant in town, just a really nice restaurant, we'd have trouble getting a reservation to spend $200 a person on dinner, which should be $100 a person on dinner, which really should have been
Mm.
$70 a person on dinner, and now is 200, and you can't get the resi. But meanwhile, every third storefront on the outer avenues, First Avenue, Second Avenue, Third Avenue, are empty.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
what
it's
about
like,
this possibility though? What if it's the idea that success is being redistributed post-pandemic, and we're reconfiguring the economy? And are we reconfiguring for the future, or are we just reacting to inflation and reacting to the inability of our government to set, new rules and create new laws? What do you think? Is it a future-focused position, or is it more of a reactive defensive posture?
look, the markets are always perfect. Whether they go up or down, the markets are what they are. And you can't predict whether I don't believe you can predict whether it's future looking or not. I look, everybody wants to talk about AI as if it were invented yesterday. What's important about AI is that while it wasn't invented yesterday, we are now living on the exponential, and the change is coming faster than anyone or anybody or anything can adapt to it. And we haven't seen, at least not as of today, we will see in a few weeks, what Apple is going to do. Alexa still sucks. Siri still sucks. Like,
Yeah.
all of these things that are would-be assistants are still not functionally what they're going to be.
Even this morning, there was news about Grok, the X AI,
XAO. Yeah.
and it's just spouting nonsense, which I guess is kind of consistent for the new version of Twitter that we're all exposed to. But it's kind of a disappointment, right? It's supposed to be the truth, or the frank, the honest AI, and now it's just spouting kind
I
of
mean, we are
ridiculous.
seeing the limitations of LLMs, in terms of the hallucinations and so forth. Under these scenarios, it's not going to get us to AGI without either some sort of multimodal approach to AI, or the next step.
So if I could, Brett, if I could push back a little bit, I learned something last week, 2 weeks ago at a dinner, that really changed my outlook on all of
All
this.
right, hit me with it.
I was lucky enough to be at a dinner with a bunch of very, very highly placed researchers, research scientists, and professors of AI, all of whom service the big four AI companies right now. And I came away from that 5-hour discussion with a very different understanding than with the one I had when I went into that discussion. You and I and Rob, I'm going to speak for all of us. We are looking at these models and the applications sitting on top of them as if they are a solution to a specific problem, the one that's stated. So
Mm.
this is going to be a chat client. It's going to give
Right.
this, the next thing. It's multimodal. It can do blah, blah, blah. We're on the cusp of social production. You describe something and the video shows up, the audio shows up. We've got some voice cloning. There's new music tools. Like there's a lot of different ways that people are using transformer networks or diffusion networks to truly change the way we do things, right? That is not the goal of any of the AI companies, I have learned. And two things
Mm.
happened: this one dinner, and then the keynote at Google's developer conference by TK. Both of these things took me to another place. One, it was very clear to me from the dinner I attended that the goal of all of the big AI companies has nothing to do with the task-oriented tools we're being shown now, or any of the apps that are being built on top of the large language models. There's only one goal: AGI.
Mm.
Most companies right now are thinking the path to AGI is massive transformer networks,
Right.
or combinations of transformer and diffusion networks, gigantic corpora, gigantic amounts of data, both organic and synthetic, that are assimilated into the Borg, and they will use these engines to do what they do. There's another school of thought, famously championed by Jan LeCun from Meta, saying, and also Jeff Hawkins, if you haven't read his
Yeah.
Thousand Brain Theory, it's worth it. And his original book on intelligence. He's the guy, for those who are listening who don't know his name, he was the driving force behind Palm Pilot, and has been thinking about AI and human brains forever and ever. Has his own institute about it. And both he and Jan LeCun believe that in order to achieve AGI, where the systems are going to have to be built completely differently and will require a world model, invariant models of things. And both their theories are something to the effect of, if you look at a piece of stemware in a cup, somewhere in your brain, down deep in the deepest learning part, closer to the limbic brain, is some invariant model of a thing that holds water. And as you get closer to your cerebral cortex, it builds itself into the distinctive different kinds of glassware and cups and vessels for water and buckets, somehow all find their way into you being able to identify this, classify it, and it's a cup, it goes in a cupboard. It's this, it goes into that. And so what that's a very different way than large language models work. It's completely different technology, completely different way that the computer is going to, in quotes, think about what it's doing. So the goal is AGI. Now, TK gets up on stage at the Google conference a couple weeks ago and starts calling everything they're doing generative AI. No distinction between a neural network, no distinction between a generative adversarial network, a diffusion model, a transformer, none of that. It's all Gen AI to them. And he started pushing this idea that Gemini 1.5 could reason.
Yep.
Now, there is an emergent quality of reason that is demonstrated by GPT-4 Turbo, that's demonstrated by Claude. And the way that manifests itself is, you could ask it to do, if it doesn't have a math plugin, you could ask it to do a very complex equation. And it has a very low chance of getting it right because it doesn't know math. It's a pattern matching tool. But if you ask it to teach you to solve an equation that's a complex, it will start going through the step-by-step and teach you each part of it. When it surfaces the answer at the end of that experience, so high percentage, higher than 90%, it's going to get the answer right. And no one's ever had a very good or adequate explanation as to why the large language model can demonstrate a greater capacity of understanding when it reasons through a problem versus when it just brute force tries to solve one by pattern matching.
Good point.
So it's a university professor. It can tell you how to do something. It just can't do it on its own professionally.
But then it gets it right after it tells you, right? So what's interesting about that is TK was up there going, we're teaching this thing to reason. And I'm thinking to myself, you are? And wait, what? So what I've come to learn over the last couple of weeks from talking to everybody, once I sort of got this bug in my head that, wait, we're playing with Lego bricks and they're building with 3D printers and astrophysics, programs. Like, hey, is this really where everybody's concentrated? I've yet to find a scientist at any one of the big data groups that will tell me that they're concentrated on making better meeting summaries. They just aren't.
Sure, sure. No, it's not that I don't disagree that we are very close to some sort of form of conversational AI that approximate a human. You know, we're obviously not far away from that moment, and it's reasonable, I think, that we could push the LLMs to that point and demonstrate, as you said, a, a, a simile or approximation of what we would think of as reasoning, because that's just, again, that's reasoning can be taught in some respects in that way. But you know this, and you know you know this debate as well as any of us, is this issue of what is AGI. AGI is more than conversational. You know, it's a general intelligence that can learn to do human tasks, and some of those tasks are cognitive, but there is a whole range of other AGI applications. You know, being able to drive a car, being able to you know, write a movie script. You know, we could, you know, like how many of these things can a AGI perform? There's a really interesting
right.
debate around
Well, it
what
starts
should be
with the
the
yeah, Brett, it starts with
yeah,
the
right,
definition, which nobody can agree on, right? It's like there's no agreed upon definition of AGI. You could say it's an AI that can perform as well or better than a human on a wide range of cognitive
right.
tasks. That's kind of the catch-all one, but I don't even know what that means. It's not defined, not well defined. Look, multimodal models and we've been stacking AI models, you know, a couple like you use GPT-4 Turbo as the base layer, then you put some kind of RAG database on top of it, some kind of vector database to constrain the model. Now there are long context windows. You don't really need to do that, but let's say you still do that. Then you might put a neural network, like a convolutional neural net on top of that to sort of be the police to say, okay, Brett likes this, Robert likes that, therefore we're going to do this, and that. Like stacking models is a thing that's happening. It's been happening for years. And so building a tech stack or an AI tech stack, yes, whatever AGI is going to require more than a large language model, at least the way we understand large language models today. But I'm to me, the point I was trying to make, and I guess I'm not doing a very good job of making the point. The point I was trying to make is that everything we've seen so far is interim. Everything.
No, I know. I'm
Everything.
absolutely 100% on board that the intent is AGI. We've talked about that numerous times on the show. In fact, you know, when people start debating whether or not we're going to get AGI,
which no one knows.
I will say, what do you think the market is putting billions of dollars into this for? Right? I mean,
Yeah.
and
No, that's exactly right. The economics for these chatbots don't make any
right.
sense. They don't justify the level of investment at all.
And the other element is, sorry, Rob, to
No, you're good. Go.
But
You're on a roll, man. Go.
But when it comes to application of narrow AI, at least in the industrial arena, and how that can affect the labor force, we don't require AGI for that level of disruption.
Oh, nothing like it. Nothing like
and
it.
So
100%.
so it doesn't really matter, you know, like in this transitional phase before we get to some level of AGI. Don't think that we need to get to AGI before AI is going to disrupt employment and disrupt industry. I mean, this is happening everywhere right now. We're seeing it in the tech industry with coding right now. It's going to happen in transportation. It's going to happen in healthcare. I mean, I don't think people realize, you know, it's not like we don't have to wait till, you know, 2027 or 2045.
No. Every time you do a Google search, every time you look at your social media feed or Netflix, you're dealing with AI. Every time you scan a check at the bank, you're using AI. So yeah, you know, the thing about that though is it's sort of in the vein of Steve Jobs' immortal words, which is it just works, right? So when artificial intelligence works properly, we don't even notice it.
Yeah.
Now, with respect
by the way, you to your point, you're going to know this is real when no one calls it AI anymore.
Yeah, it'll just be baked in, or it'll be all software at that point.
Yeah, it's all software, 100%.
Okay, so Shelly, now given that, what Brett just said is a great setup for the next thing I wanted to get to, which is this. So far, we've been talking about the big tech companies that have the resources and they've got the human resources to focus on building a general intelligence. What about everybody else? What about other companies? What about your clients? You work with all sorts of companies in consumer electronics and automotive and consultancies. How do those companies deal with this? Are they going to try to compete?
Mm.
Are they going to be customers? Are they going to build their business on top of this AI as a platform and then be dependent or locked in?
So this is the greatest question of this year and maybe next year too. You got roughly 36% of the S&P is made up of Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Amazon,
Mhm.
Alphabet, Meta. I guess you throw Tesla in there too. Like that's most of the S&P right now. Every one of those companies has all the data on, or like Google, you're logged into Google 100% of the time,
Yeah.
your whole life. Like you are just logged in all day long. Apple, if you're in both of them, really, right? So, what possible reality could any CTO or new chief AI officer or CDO or CTO, what fantasy could they tell themselves that's like, oh, let's build a stack? And what will that stack look like? And what will it do? I just started doing these seminars after about a year of prep with all of our, I'm say about half our biggest clients, building their first synthetic employee. It's the name of the seminar.
Oh, yes.
It,
We noticed this on your blog. Okay, great. Tell
it,
us more.
it takes like 6 months to get all the pre-socialization done because you got to go to legal and you got to go to HR and you got to go to like the individual units and then you got to get the CDO, CTO, and CIO lined up. Then you need InfoSec lined up. Like you got to go and have lunch with everybody and get everybody on the same page. And then you start pre-building these modules. What we were able to do is take some of our clients that have somewhere between 100 and 200 AI projects going on, little ones, and like get everything together on okay, these are all component parts of the synthetic employee. It gives a North Star, gives a hallway handle. There's like good stuff that happens out of that. But what it doesn't do, Rob, and this is the part that I don't know how the future plays, it doesn't empower them to do anything more than open a commercial relationship with OpenAI or Google or Amazon or
Okay.
Azure to get compute.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Well,
you're
that's what
creating
they're
customers for the big tech companies then.
how else are they going to do it?
Yeah, that's
You're
true.
not building your own model. Nobody's going to build it.
Yeah,
You'll
no,
build your
'cause
own. You might
it's
put a vector database together, but you're not, or get together databases that you can use in a long context window. Nobody's training their own model.
have you guys seen the estimates on the pricings for the next models? I mean, we're talking 100 billion plus.
Yeah.
How many companies can raise that sort of money?
I hate to be the joy killer here. This is a great
Oh, we gotta go to
conversation, but
break.
we have to take a little break. We'll be right back. Just hang tight because we're going to be back with Shelly Palmer on the Futurists in just a minute.
Provoke Media is proud to sponsor, produce, and support the Futurist podcast. Provoke.fm is a global podcast network and content creation company with the world's leading fintech podcast and radio show, Breaking Banks. And of course, its spin-off podcasts, Breaking Banks Europe, Breaking Banks Asia Pacific, and the FinTech 5. But we also produce the official Finovate podcast, Tech on Reg, Emerge Everywhere, the podcast of the Financial Health Network, and Next Gen Banker. For information about all our podcasts, go to provoke.fm or check out Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. Welcome back to The Futurists. I'm your host, Brett King, and we are live. Rob Tercek in the co-hosting chair, or in the other hosting chair, and our guest, Shelly Palmer. Shelly, you spent a lot of time before we sort of continue on the whole corporation thing. I want to go back to the fact that you spent a lot of time being a technology expert for major TV networks and so forth, and so that should be a sort of a litmus test for how AI has been absorbed into society and so forth. But from your experience with the networks, do they get this as yet, or is it still a bit like when we saw, the early, networks talking about internet and the @ symbol on the email, that classic one, and things like that?
So our clients are big brands, big tech, and big media. That's pretty much who we deal with, and mostly Fortune 500 companies. Some of the organizations are doing an incredible job experimenting. Some organizations have been using AI in various forms for years. This is nothing new. What's new is large language models and chat
Mm,
clients, but AI writ large is not new or even a little bit new. Certainly the TV studios, they've been pushing the envelope with what you can do with a computer and graphics a lot for years. Sony and Microsoft, Nvidia, Unreal Engine, there's every piece of software you'd ever imagine has been evolving as quickly as can be evolved. There's always been enough money to build a blockbuster movie. They've always invented new technology as best they can to make it happen. What's interesting is now that this is becoming socialized. I call it social production. Whatever you think social media did to media, social production is going to do to production. Like you just described something, and someone who has absolutely no skill whatsoever but has an idea will be able to produce something. So there's only a finite amount of attention in the world, Brett. Like it's
mm.
24 hours a day. You sleep for 8 if you're lucky. If you're me, 3. and, um, and then you work for some number of hours and you do the whatever you do the rest of the hours. But one way or the other, everyone's at an attention deficit, and so once you have capabilities to produce something of a quality level that will get someone's attention, whatever that is, right? It could be a meme that you wouldn't ordinarily have been able to create, but now you can and distribute to your friends. It could be a 20, 30-second YouTube short or TikTok video. If you couldn't have done it before, but now you can, and it's at a higher level, you are going to take attention away from things that other people get paid for. And there's no way around this. So
Yeah.
every network and every company is doing everything they can to work in 3 buckets right now. Bucket number 1 is pure productivity. These tools can make you more productive in a heterogeneous way.
Mm,
If you're great at your job, these tools will make you more productive somewhere between a few percentage points and hundreds of percentage points. I can tell you measurably, I write a blog every day. You guys know that. Thank you for being readers. And I write a thought leadership piece on the weekend. I used to spend 45 minutes to an hour every morning writing the morning rant, and I used to spend 3 hours on a Saturday writing the Sunday thought leadership piece. I'm now spending 15 minutes a day writing the morning rant, which is 300 to 500 words, and I'm spending no more than 45 minutes to an hour on the weekends. I am measurably gotten back 40 days a year, 40 physical days a year of time. I have 13 months now that I can do in 12. So and at my pay rate, that's a fairly significant number. That's a
mm.
quantifiable, totally measurable time productivity enhancement based on these tools. Now, apply that across my entire workday because these tools are open all day long. If you're good at your job, you can, and you understand what you're looking at, this will amplify your skills. If you're good at your job, you'll get better, like whatever, or better is the wrong word, more productive. And if you suck at your job, you are still going to suck. It's not going to make you, it'll just make you suck more obviously and at a higher level of suckage. So when you think about this, the bucket
Enhanced
one is,
suckage, I think, is
yes.
probably the right technical term.
Yeah, I
Great.
think it is a technical term. So bucket 1 is productivity. There's no point in enhancing productivity if you're not going to revise and innovate on workflow and process. So what we are teaching in our practice to our clients is let's rethink the way we do everything and try and reduce these old-fashioned processes to incorporate the productivity increase that you can get from using these new tools. So that's bucket 1. Bucket 2 is talking to data. This is new and it's
Mm,
really interesting. Like if you've got a fairly decent structured database, you can now use large language models as a transformation layer. And I could sit you down in front of a chat client, and instead of, you can imagine it like I'm talking to my dashboard or I'm talking to the report. As opposed to reading the report, you could have a dialogue with the report. As opposed to looking at a dashboard, you could have a dialogue with the dashboard. You ask a what question? What would happen if so-and-so, such and such went down in market 7 between these dates? You can't ask a why question because why requires human insight. But if the question begins with what, you can ask data a question. So talking to data using these tools to translate to code is really interesting. And when you take a subject matter expert, an executive who really knows their stuff, and you give them the ability to not have to play telephone with their data office and a programmer to get the information they need to make a business decision, that is actionable. And that's really, you will see ROI on that. And then the third bucket we see everybody working with, or we're working with everybody, is new product, new ways to interact with clients, new ways for the clients to interact with data, new ways to surface experiences using these tools, whether anything as simple as cloning a voice, or making some new images, or putting together little mini videos, or creating new copy, or a better chat experience for customer service, easier ways to order fast food, whatever those things are. Everyone's working on new products. So those three buckets, productivity, talking to data, and new products, seem to be where everybody is right now. But they're all on other people's tech. It's just like cloud.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
Azure's walking in there, Amazon, AWS is walking in there, GCP's walking in there and saying, buy our stuff. We're going to hook you up, and you can build on top of it. It's a kind of a reprise of the business models of yesteryear.
Yeah,
no,
like
that's the strategy, right? It's a Roach Motel.
Yeah.
The idea is, sign up for our cloud and use our AI tools. We'll teach you how to use them. We'll teach you how to integrate them through your entire business. And good luck pulling out. Good luck switching to another platform, because now you're stuck. Okay, so for folks who are listening, you're probably wondering right now, boy, Shelly just rattled off an awful lot of things that companies should be doing, and maybe your company's doing some of those things, and maybe your company's not doing other things. One resource I want to direct you to is, if you go to Shelly Palmer's blog, which is shellypalmer.com, there's a whole section on courses. There are free courses available that will acquaint you with the concepts that he's just described, and they're quite useful. I've done these myself. If you want to learn about cryptocurrency, blockchain, artificial intelligence, generative AI, there are courses available, and these are free of charge. This is just a service that Shelly provides to folks because he wants to share this info. So I strongly recommend that. But Shelly, what we've talked about now so far is this idea that big tech is advancing generative AI. They're advancing towards what they call AGI, whether or not we agree with that definition, but they're gonna wrangle the definition and fit something into that box sooner or later. So that's clearly a strategy. One of the reasons they're pushing so hard on this front is growth in technology has slowed down. As you pointed out a moment ago, all the gains in NASDAQ, frankly, across the board, have come from a handful of companies. And these companies collectively are worth trillions of dollars in value, and they are world killers. They are the biggest companies on the planet. Collectively, Apple, Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Meta, and now NVIDIA, collectively, they generate about $1.6 trillion of economic activity. So they are enormous, like far greater than any country except for the United States in their collective power. And yet their growth has slowed. And this is happening across the board. So the big question for them then is, where's the growth? Well, one way to do it is to try to revive the fortunes of cloud. Cloud has slowed down significantly. That was a huge driver for Microsoft, for Amazon, of course, who created it, and somewhat for Google. So now the idea is to bolt AI into the cloud and maybe lure businesses in. But tech spending is down. So that's not a place that companies are eager to invest more. And for the reason you just said, it's quite obviously a trap. It's a Roach Motel, as I said. So that's a concern for them. Some people are telling us that quantum computing is going to be the future. And of course, famously, Apple and also Meta are betting the bank on spatial computing or metaverse. Tell me about those growth strategies for the future. Do you have any confidence in quantum or in spatial?
Okay. This is what a giant question. So
Rob likes to do big, giant questions.
let's take it backwards. At the moment, quantum is really hard. We are waiting for some massive, massive improvements in technology. It could happen tonight, or it could never happen. And
That's it.
And when it does, prime factors are going to become a thing that can get done immediately.
Yeah.
Shor's algorithm is like the algorithm you need a quantum computer for. Once you understand the mathematics behind that, you will be able to basically crack any version of encryption that's based on prime factors, and a large number of prime factors. And whole internet's going to have to get rebuilt overnight when this
Everything, the banking system, the telecommunication system,
the
military comms. Why do you think it is that China had those weather balloons up over the US capturing signals intelligence? They can't decrypt that stuff now, but
no, you
Just
can't.
Saving it for the future.
You can't
Yeah.
decrypt anything now in a reasonable time. The best supercomputers can only do what they can do. Quantum computer with a sufficient number of qubits, and that is the magic word, sufficient number of qubits would be able to do this. How many? Some people say 500 qubits, some people say more. You know, there isn't a practical quantum computer now that's anywhere near that size. So, you know, when we get there, we get there. Do I believe in it? I do. I really do. I think that everybody understands the problem set, but there's laws of physics standing between us and it, right? It's got to be.
But the CEO of IBM, I saw him in Leap a few weeks ago in Riyadh, and he said they're 5 years away. You know,
Okay, I
like
believe him. If he says,
yeah, I mean, he was pretty convincing. But
and what else is he going to say? No, we're never
yeah,
getting.
no, I guess.
Hey,
Elon
Shelley,
Musk-
what's the
But
impact?
5 years. You know, normally they'd say 10 years because you can forget about the estimate, but 5 years is not that far away.
No,
So when I hear
1,000
that, Brett, I think about Web3.
qubit quantum, right?
I think about Web3. That's a 5-year mission or mandate for Web3 companies to reconfigure what they're doing, because the entire blockchain ecosystem is going to be undone when quantum's available. There goes the encryption at the core of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all done. It's done in a day.
Yeah.
Bitcoin's over in a day.
Yeah.
Literally one
So should
day.
we dump Bitcoin? Hang on to it right now.
You
Happening.
know, I don't give financial advice. If you need
Not yet.
financial advice, like, you know, look, I had a best-selling book called Blockchain, Cleverly in the Middle of Blockchain, and so I have a lot of expertise and knowledge because I started mining Bitcoin around 2009 or 10, and I mined a lot of Ethereum, and we built I don't know how many blockchain projects before anyone cared about it. And then after people cared about it, it was good too. You know, you brought up metaverse and Web3 and all, you know, spatial computing and all of these things that are all supposed to be happening right now. Vision Pro is a stepping stone to the future that must happen. We need smaller processors,
I'm the
battery
same.
life. We need so many things that are obvious when you put on a Vision Pro.
Devs need to create applications and content. And
My neck hurts still from my Vision Pro.
We need to figure out the how to build spatial interfaces. Like, there's a fair bit.
And Apple, God bless them, they are the ones with the money and the wherewithal and the willingness to try and make this happen. And the only way to make it happen is to put headsets on people and have the people react and you know, give good feedback. And ultimately, I am sure we're in Darth Vader helmets and Stormtrooper helmets, and the bandoliers are not ammo, they're batteries. That's what I'm sure of. But you know, since no one is going to go to a dinner party wearing a Stormtrooper helmet or Darth Vader helmet and a bandolier of batteries, Apple's got some work to do. So when, you know, when this thing is the size of my eyeglasses, yes, when I have a heads-up display that doesn't creep people out, the cameras don't creep people. There's so much sociology and technology that have to get worked out. This one, I believe in it, but I also believed in interactive television, and there is the earliest patent in the interactive TV space. It's 1993, and I can promise you it's still not happening, and it's 2024. So, you know, that it's not like you couldn't think of it. It's that there are 1 billion reasons why this stuff doesn't happen. Business rules, you know, sociological pushback, behavioral pushback. It's not just tech. The tech is part of the problem. With respect to growth, I really think, Rob, the biggest issue Apple has is that, with the exception of the iPhone, they've only iterated since Steve Jobs passed away. May he rest in peace. Other than the Vision Pro, what have they brought out that blew your mind? It was brand new and cool and interesting. Yeah, the Apple Watch. Okay, I'll give you that. And right now, that's in a 79th version. I'm not seeing them as like the innovative. They're a country, not a company. So is Microsoft. So is Google. These are gigantic bureaucracies. and
You've written very favorably about Microsoft. Your feeling is Satya Nadella is the best CEO, and I think you're right about that. And it's
I
certainly
mean,
borne out by market valuation.
yeah, I mean, you could throw Jensen Wang in there and just say, well, Jensen's probably, probably better just on pure crazy. But Satya, I think, has made some strategic decisions that are pretty brilliant. Microsoft is back from the dead.
Yeah.
I think he's done a great job, a really great
Yeah.
job. By the way, Andy Jassy's killing it at Amazon. And
Over.
and the thing is, when I look at Google, they've got a billion problems that have nothing to do with technology. But if you go in the hallowed halls of Google and you've got an NDA to go play, they have the tech. They have it. They don't know how to package it at all, but it's not like they don't have the tech. They've got a packaging problem. They've got a go-to-market problem. They don't have a tech.
They've had a packaging problem for a while though, like Google Plus, and like
Yes.
I mean, they've done pretty well with Android, and other elements, obviously, but
they're not packaging Android. Other people are packaging it, right? Like GCP, the way I understand it now, every time we invite Google, Amazon, OpenAI, Microsoft to an event that we throw, we ask them to do thought leadership, and they will bring some thought leaders some of the time. Mostly what they bring is cloud salespeople, and they're trying to sell cloud. Everybody's selling cloud. And if you buy our cloud, we will give you all these wonderful tools that will make you an AI monster. We are the AI specialists in the world, and our AI is better than anybody else's. And at the end of the day, that's a battle that's an arms race we will all benefit from. We really will, because the big companies are going to try and go at each other. Here's the question I have, Rob, since this is the Futurists.
Yeah.
I don't know what Apple's going to put in iOS 18. We won't know for a couple of weeks. And when we know that, we'll know a lot more. But to me, is it possible or likely that small models, little 7 billion parameter models, or even smaller, running locally, doing specialized products with these smaller models, is that actually the future? Because am I going to let OpenAI stick a needle in my arm and leave it there forever? Some big companies might. No one ever got fired for buying an IBM computer or whatever. But Brett, Rob, and Shelly decide we're going to do a project. We're going to build an app, and it's going to be an AI-enabled or powered app. Why wouldn't we grab one of the open source models?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about open source. I'm glad you bring it up. Yeah,
fine-tune the hell out of it and put it out there to do our bidding.
Yeah.
And then and if the compute is capable of running locally, now I've got, okay, you'll trust yourself with your own data. Pay me a fee to use this thing I've built that keeps you private and awesome. And by the way, if the good guys don't do that, the bad guys certainly will. So is that a probable future?
So you raised a good point by bringing up the Apple phone, because the Apple phone happens to have the processing power necessary to run the small language models locally. And I think that's a very
look at
nice
the chips.
counterpoint
The chips
to these
are
big
developing to run, these AI instances. So it's definitely there.
So Shelly, the next 6 months, I think you're going to see steps towards reasoning. This is something that every AI expert we've talked to is kind of gone on about, whether or not it's true reasoning or this kind of pseudo reasoning.
Look like reasoning. Yeah,
that's right. But that's why I say we're going to back into a definition of intelligence that suits the tech versus like really defining intelligence and building that thing. But the second thing everyone's talking about now is building a network of agents. And I think that's what you were leading up to just a moment ago. So you say, okay, hey, the model itself is useful. ChatGPT does certain things, I guess, reasonably well. But where it really would be great is if I could tune it towards my own workflow on my device, my data. I'm not sharing it in the cloud. And now I could build, a suite of applications, orchestrate a little suite. Now, OpenAI took the lead here about 6 months ago with GPTs. They tried, right? Now, I would say kind of botched the deployment of it because it hasn't really caught the world on fire, and it's a little hard to find them. Like, they don't have a great GPT store. Talk about a company that doesn't put the Chrome on the finished product so much. They're a R&D shop, but they took a step in the right direction. And in terms of a show about the future, what's your take about the advent of useful agents in 2024? Is that too soon? Or is it 2025? What is your take on that?
So This idea of agentic tools is well understood by an awful lot of engineers. The question becomes who has the skill to do it? If we don't have tooling now, Rob, like we don't, none of the things that we need are yet in place. If I say to you, I want to search the web, you kind of know what I mean. If I say I'm going to Google something, you have an invariant model. You instantly know exactly what I mean. And in your mind, you know what those results are going to look like. There's no phrase like that in the entirety of the AI world.
Yeah.
Everyone's got their own pseudo definitions of everything.
Yeah,
and
you don't
like
chat GPT anything.
you don't. And in fact, what you also don't do is you don't know what a login looks like, the way OAuth gives you a login, or a login with Facebook, or login with Google. Like there are entire libraries of things you use over and over and over again to build websites with, to build databases with, to pipe things and tool things together, to orchestrate various tools. When that orchestration is clear,
Mhm.
then a normal engineer or the AI itself will be able to orchestrate these agents together. That's going to get weird. Like we're thinking coders are going to do this. I don't know what it means to be a developer 60 months from now.
And I think people have to figure out their workflow. If
You're a
like,
traffic cop. You're an
if you
AI
think about the
traffic cop.
core skill of writing code, I think Micah Brush talked about this recently. He said writing code, people think that's the skill. The real skill is breaking
No,
down
it was Jensen
complex
Huang. Well, Jensen Huang talked about the
Okay.
fact that don't teach your kids to code, but yeah.
Okay, so anyway, the point I was
No,
driving
you're
towards there is the real skill is breaking down complex processes, breaking down workflow, and defining them in such a way that you can automate them or you can write software for them. You don't have to be a software engineer. That's a habit of mind, right? That's a habit of mind. Now, the writing of the code might be something that's automated, but I would argue that skill is pretty elusive and it's not taught especially well. It's something you can teach yourself, but it's hard work, right? You have to observe your own process. You've done it, Shelly. You've done it. You've been able to automate certain parts of your workflow. Most people don't have the self-awareness or the discipline to do that, but that would be a great thing to focus on in 2024, right? Automate yourself.
So what we teach in our consulting practice is a term to de-jargonize every aspect of this. After we go through our leadership level sets, after we go through all our workshops with our clients, they will have a better understanding. But before we even start, we frame it the following way. Think of this as super automation. Imagine there are cognitive, non-repetitive tasks, what you would call white collar work, things that you need a person to do. But this very specialized group of tasks, you're going to teach another person in the following way. Hey, here's the method. First you do this, then you do that, then you do this. When you come to this, you have a decision to make. One of these three things, pick that. If it's one, do this. If it's two, do that. If it's three, do that. These are rule-based methodologies that we use to teach junior assistants and people coming into the business. And we teach people, here's how to shoot a bow and arrow. Here's how to build a fire. Here's how, we teach people methods to do things. Here's how to write a piece of music. Here's how to orchestrate that piece of music into reggae or country, or what we teach them. And another name for rules is algorithms.
Yeah.
And you know what's good at algorithms? Computers. So we don't even want to go there. Imagine in your business, person who is a client of ours, something you could super automate that you don't believe can be automated now because you think a person has to do it. Let's write the tasks down. Like what's really happening. And as soon as you do that, as soon as they literally list the steps, I know we have a few minutes left. I will tell you the day I learned the most valuable, most important lesson about computer programming I was ever going to learn was in 7th grade in Mr. Hadlin's data processing half-hour study hall class. You could do it instead of study hall. So, of course, I thought computers were cool. This goes back so long ago. It's not only is it in the last century, it is in ancient times. And the first assignment, most people won't even understand what this assignment was. In words, not code, take a can of frozen orange juice concentrate from your freezer and turn it into a pitcher of fully constituted orange juice.
Mm.
Now write in words the computer program that would do that. And there were
Mm.
30 people in the class because it was public school. And I expected everybody to write the exact same thing. Go to the freezer, check to see if the orange juice is there. Take the orange juice out, see if it's really frozen. Like what, find a pitcher, find the water. Like just I expected everyone to have So of the 30 kids, not only was nothing the same as we all read them out loud in class, which was the end of the exercise, some people were checking to see if you shook the can, was it empty? Other people just said, shake the
Right.
can. Other people just said, pour the thing in. The range of misunderstanding of how to even error check did you even get the stuff out of the little
can't even
carton?
make orange juice right.
And so I'm in 7th grade and my mind is exploded by the way people think, and also the level when the teacher went through it, the level of accuracy and detail you needed to do in order to make this thing not me telling you a prose story about how to make the instructions on the back. It was unbelievable to me. I've never recovered from it. It's 100 years later, and I'm telling you the story like it was yesterday.
No. You guys will laugh at this, but I used to make pocket money at high school by taking programming assignments and coding them like 6 or 7 different ways for $5 a program for other kids in school because I love to code.
That's entrepreneurialism.
Yeah, I guess so.
Right. Hey,
talking about that.
Yep.
I want to just before because we are wrapping up, but and I got to take us into the future, Rob. Right, I got to take us there. So, we hear a lot of talk right now, Shelly, about like someone building a one-man unicorn, right? And you use the term productivity. And, since the days of Friedman, we've been enraptured with productivity. And the ultimate productivity tool is removing humans from the workforce, right? So what does a corporation look like in 2040?
That's such a great question. And when I think about the $1 trillion one-person SaaS organization,
right?
What I really start thinking about is the behavioral change in society that will inspire and instigate the change in the corporate world. One of the fastest growing AI apps right now is character AI. And here you are talking to a fake Paris Hilton, a fake Elon Musk, a fake boyfriend or girlfriend or significant other. You're inventing characters. You can pay these guys a little money and you could sit in a chat room with Albert Einstein and Stephen Hawking and a bunch of dead physicists and talk physics. Like when people are it's a sticky app. People are there a couple hours a day. And every marketer I know in the world will tell you about how authentic they need to be. Like they need to be super authentic in what they're doing and authentic to the brand and authentic to the audience. And here we're seeing all these 13 to 32-year-olds synthetic tools and like the synthetic influencers, and not just virtual influencers, synthetic influencers, synthetic friends, synthetic boyfriends and girlfriends. You listen to Scott Galloway, his new book about is all filled with stats about how just the behavior change has been unbelievable in young men and women since the pandemic. They're not getting married. They don't have money. They're all pissed off at the boomers. He's got a really good case that he's making. And I got to tell you, when I think about what a corporation would look like, the first thing I got to say to myself is, what exactly are we going to need from the corporate world? Because that's going to tell us the shape. Right? Are we going to need analgesics for our headache? Are we going to need food? Are we going to need gasoline? Like, what are the things we're going to need? Because that's going to tell us where Figure and Boston Dynamics new robot and all these humanoid robots that are coming to market, Jensen Huang was pushing, like, where are those robots going to work? How much AI will they need? They won't need to be AGI. They're going to need to be task rabbits. Like each one of those is going to have to know how to do some stuff and be able to negotiate its world. So once I understand consumer behavior in the time frame you're talking about, like how humans will evolve the way their needs and wants, then I can work back into which industries are likely to be relatively unchanged except for productivity, which new ones might emerge to super serve the new behaviors, and which must perish because they haven't adapted and have no chance to adapt. And so I think that's the framework I'd look at it through. And, it's its own hour.
Yeah, it is.
But if I had to
I
think
mean,
about it, that's how I think about
But
it.
we are as close to that date today. We're actually closer to 2040 today than we are the creation of the iPhone.
Correct.
So, it could happen very quickly.
It's going to happen.
Now, look, that's to recap the show. We just talked about this episode alone. We just talked about migrating workflows to the cloud and building a business on AI in the cloud. That's a possibility right now. There's some risk attached to that, but that knocks out a huge amount of capital investment for companies. That's idea one. Idea two, we talked about these devices, miniaturization. And Shelly, you pointed out that everything that's in my iPhone today eventually is going to be in my eyeglasses. So to me, that's about us incorporating this technology into our bodies, where we're kind of merging with the machines. We're wearing them, but they're getting closer and closer and closer to our bodies, where they're with us all the time. Robotics is an extension of human capability in the Marshall McLuhan sense, where the robots can be stronger or bigger or faster than humans can. And robotics is coming along. We just interviewed Harry Kluwer about that, and the folks from Boston Dynamics. We got some great insight on the show about that topic as well. And then today we also talked about agents. And to me, what agents are about, software agents are about delegating decision-making power. They can work faster and smarter than us if we structure them in the right way. Obviously not an easy thing to do. Your orange juice example illustrates that for us. But just those 5 things I just described start to show us the kind of outline of the company of the future that Brett was referring to, which is, maybe not a one-person corporation, but certainly not a corporation with 100,000 people in it, right? Where huge chunks of what humans used to do will be fully automated. Now, my imagination, where that takes us to is not unemployment. I know that's the scary scenario people talk about. To my imagination, that takes me to anybody can build a company. And somebody who's listening to this today that's young and ambitious, start thinking about an industry where you can deploy those 5 technologies that Shelly told us about, where you can deploy those 5 technologies and orchestrate them in kind of unison to automate an entire business process. I know that sounds like science fiction, and that's okay. That's part of what the show is all about. But the big change that has to come is the idea of system-wide deployment of these tools. Right now, we do it as a single application. We try to automate one workflow. Even now, ChatGPT, these AI tools, they do one thing. They're point solutions. We know that's not the future. The future is going to be system-wide, right? Who's the Henry Ford who's going to orchestrate the entire supply chain and deploy these 5 technologies? That's a super exciting future, I think. Well, gosh, Shelly, it's such a great pleasure to have you on the show. Thanks for sparing the time and joining us and sharing your insight. I just love listening to hear you spin the narrative. Super fun to have you on the Futurists with us this week. How can folks learn more about you? I mentioned your courses at shellypalmer.com/courses. So definitely check that out. Are there other places that we can direct people to learn more?
I think shellypalmer.com is good. If you're AI interested, shellypalmer.com/AI or .ai will work for you. And that's the best place. Would love people to subscribe to the newsletter. I try to write a little bit every day about something that gets important to me. And on Sundays, I do a thought leadership piece, generally in and around marketing, business, AI, things that we're talking about today. That'd be lovely. And anybody who wants to learn more or has questions we didn't cover today, you can email me. I'm easy to get to. Shelly at shellypalmer.com. We'll do our best to answer your questions.
Amen.
Awesome. Super fun to see you on the show. Thank you, Shelly. And a big shout out to Kevin Hirschhorn, Elizabeth Severance, and the folks at Provoke Media who make the show possible. Brett, it's always fun to hang out with you. Next week, we'll be back, folks. We'll bring another futurist or someone who is thinking about or influencing or shaping the future as they see it. And until then, Brett, we'll see you
in the future.
Well, that's it for the Futurists this week. If you like the show, we sure hope you did. Please subscribe and share it with the people in your community. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star review. That really helps other people find the show. And you can ping us anytime on Instagram and Twitter at Futurist Podcast for the folks that you'd like to see on the show or the questions that you'd like us to ask. Thanks for joining. And as always, we'll see you in the future.